All right, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome back to the UAE Careers Community Annual Careers Fair. For those of you who have just joined us, the UAE Careers Community is a community of individuals created to empower the youth with careers education in the UAE. The virtual fair is one of the many ways in which we try to make this happen. And if any of you online today are interested to learn more, do visit our website or feel free to contact us. Our next topic is event planning as a skill set, and this will be facilitated by Ms. Lanita Noronha from Curtin Dubai. Lanita currently manages marketing and outreach at the Dubai campus of Curtin University. Prior to this, she had spent 6 years in various industries ranging from business startups, human resources, personal care, fashion, and higher education. She proactively volunteers for community outreach programs and utilizes her leisure time by hosting events and pursuing vocal training. Welcome, Lanita, over to you.
Thank you very much for that generous introduction, Shweta. I really appreciate it. I would have shown the pretty face, but thanks to COVID, I'm getting the opportunity to hide without the makeup. So jokes apart, I'm here to walk you through a few quick tips on event management. I know lunchtime is near, so I'm going to try to keep it as quirky as possible. So feel free to stop me if you have any questions or drop them in the chat section below. So tips for event beginners, event management beginners. Show of hands, has anyone here ever organized an event at all? You can just raise the hand feature on Zoom. You can click on the, there I'm getting a chat. Some have, okay. Flash news. Each of you have organized event at some point of your life in some way or another. Easy example, a surprise birthday celebration for your loved one. Event planning, event management, event execution. Planning your friends or cousins' babies, your nephews or nieces or friends' babies' first birthday party. Event planning, event execution, event management overall. Planning a day out with the friends includes event planning, event execution, event management overall. What I'm trying to say is there are stages at each of our life where we don't realize but do end up managing events from small scale to large scale. Only difference is we don't do it for a living, or we don't do it for a monetary profit, or we don't do it on a commercial level. So I'm here to give you some tips and tricks to help you understand or help you put some little things together that will help you execute an event in an organized manner that will, one, not help you have panic attacks closer to the event, or have a bigger view, a bigger picture of what the event should look like and how you can actually progress to make it a success. So moving on to quickly introducing myself about why is it that I am speaking about events. As Ms. Shweta already mentioned about my work experience, I wanted to quickly touch base on the areas that involves primarily around events. I actually started working as a graphic design admin, and the journey led me through exploring different events the organization was conducting. And what I realized is that I'm someone who has a strength within coordination. I'm someone who has strength within being able to plan and visualize the bigger picture of events and support. From there on, my passion for events kept growing. And that led me to consistently working on multiple events, up to 16 events a month. And as of now, proud to say that I've also led events with close to 1,000 students being part of competitions. I also thoroughly enjoy organizing corporate social responsibility events and partnerships. You may ask, how is partnership relevant to event management? But I'll get to it as we go ahead. So that's quickly about me, and moving on to the ums and hums of event management. What do I mean by the ums and hums? I'm sure not a terminology that's technically that's used on technicality basis, but what I'm trying to convey over here is when you have an event that's coming up, it's important to ask the basic questions and take the decisions. Should I be planning something for 50 people? Do I have the capacity for it? If I invite those 50 people, will I be able to feed them? Will I have the seating capacity? Will I be able to source water? Will I be able to arrange entertainment? Okay, let me start making decisions. I have a space that can accommodate up to 40 people, but if I rearrange the chairs, I can take up 50. I have two contacts who are willing to do large scale catering, but for good price. I can bring them over. I do have my friends who do provide entertainment on their free time. Maybe if I reach out to them, they can come and help me out. The ums and hms of event management are going through the little things, asking the question on how possible is it to do, asking the questions on how quickly can I do it, asking the questions on the capacity and feasibility of it, and then moving to the who's of making decisions where you say, this is possible, this is not possible. Now it's that no, it's impossible. What are the alternative ways that I can make it possible? So I hope I made sense there. If not, you have the chat box to ask the questions. So first step of event management is to go through the basics, understanding the basic requirement. When you think of an event, look at it as the perspective of someone who will be attending it. What are the first few questions the attendee wants to know about the event? One, what time is it happening? Which day is it happening? Where is it happening? How do I get to the place? Once I get to the place, how long will I have to be there? What will be the mode of the event? So you have to basically start over there and then slowly move towards the other nitty-gritties of it. Now, before I jump into specifications, let me quickly take you through an event timeline, which will explain it even better. Step one, finalizing the nitty-gritty of event. I just mentioned that it's important to first know the first few things the attendee of the event will want to know. You have to finalize that or have shortlisted spaces to cater to that question the attendee might ask. Just a few minutes ago, I had another session where I was talking about how your network is your net worth. Your network is your net worth. As someone who wants to organize events, it's important to network and have vendors and supplier contacts handy with you. When you finalize an event or when you want to finalize an event, don't stick to one location. Always have contacts for multiple locations, multiple caterers, multiple audiovisual suppliers, and multiple collateral suppliers. Have a run through different venues and identify what venue would suit the attendee best. You have to remember you're creating an event not for yourself, but for the attendees. It's important that you ensure you prepare a seamless, easy, and fun experience. You create an experience for those that are attending the event and you make it as seamless as possible. So when you're finalizing the basics, identify, depending on who your attendees are, choose the location that will be most convenient for them, or choose a location strategically that you would want them to come to in order to achieve a monetary benefit. What I mean by that is, for example, you have a friend who wants to showcase the arts and the sculptures they have, but you also have an event coming up. Maybe you could host an event in an exhibition center where you could strategically have the attendees join the event there and have your friends showcase the arts and artifacts they have, so that it's a two goal achieved in one event kind of thing. So you have to either make the location very convenient for the attendees or plan it in such a manner that it strategically falls well within the commercial goal you may have. Next, choose the right date and time. Why is it important to choose the right date and time? Imagine you would like to have a business gathering, but you choose to do it on a Tuesday afternoon in the middle of the week where everyone's going to be busy. Everyone's going to be catching up on what needs to happen throughout for the rest of the week, or what's the progress that's happening. It's difficult to get those people out. Ideal times to have business networking events are on a day before the weekend for breakfast. You will notice that there's highest responses, highest attendees coming in for a breakfast session a day before the weekend begins, because the last day of the week is relatively relaxed in the mornings, and the teams can actually be able to, the attendees can actually take time out and come in. So location, date and time. Next, preparing the further details that will aid to the experience of the attendee. That is meals, beverages, snacks. You always have to remember when you have attendees coming into events, apart from the main goal that's there, the aiding experience can make or break their impression of the event itself. And what I mean by the aiding experience is ensuring that the weather is suitable, ensuring that the space that they're seated in is comfortable, has sufficient AC supply. If it's going to be too crowded, will it get too warm? Will I have to get fans for it? Meal. You never know, rather you'll never realize that food is the secret to everyone's heart. And if the food is not satisfactory, the attendees' experience will be impacted. So that's another thing to worry about. So that's another thing to think about. So you need to have a list of caterers that have good reviews, get the pricing, ensure you match it against the budget. So this is about finalizing the nitty-gritty. Start small, go over the basics, go over the 5 things that the attendee would care about the most. Next, set internal expectations. What is internal expectation? You have a team that you'll be working with. When you organize an event, although if you vision how the event needs to go on, you have a set of experts that can support you and help in executing it. So that would include someone that is able to manage the IT side of things, someone who is able to support you with providing the logistics, that is setting up the chairs and the tables, setting up the projectors and the aiding pillars to it, so on and so forth. Once you have penned down the basics, you have to call and communicate these expectations to those that will be part of the event. Communicate it clearly and let them know what needs to be done and set internal expectations. Once you have set it down, prepare a timeline. Prepare a timeline, work backwards if you're not able to do it upfront right away. And what I mean by work backwards is, for example, you have an event that's going to happen next Saturday. You have a week to announce about it, but your designer will take at least a day or 2 to prepare the content. So you're going to lose 2 days there. So the rest of the 5 days that you have, how exactly do you see yourself promoting it? Do you have someone within your network who can help you with social media? Or do you have someone within your network who can help you with pushing the word out, word of mouth? So how many days do you need to have that worked on? You allocate the timeline. How many days do you need to actually finalize the caterer, food tasting if necessary? How many days do you need to actually set up the space? Or how soon do you have to work on permits if applicable? Work on a detailed timeline so you know that you are in par with what's happening. You are up to date with what's happening for your event. When you prepare the timeline, what happens is it allows you to also derive a checklist off of it. Trust me, if you're going to see yourself working heavily within events, a checklist is a lifesaver. Smallest of things, make note of it, make a little checkbox. As you mark against it, you'll know you've covered a majority of it. as you cover the checklist, you'll know the progress of it. So a checklist is the easiest way to track progress. Now, if you ask me, do I have checklists for my events? I would say no. And why am I even asking you all to keep a checklist? Here's the reason. I told you that I've done events up to 16 events a month. And this is since past 4 to 5 years. I've done so many events that the checklist keeps building at the back of my head. And because I kept following a checklist, the way I organize events has become a pattern of it. When I start an event, I know automatically this is something that has to happen, and it works as a muscle memory for me at this point. So as a beginner, start with the checklist. As you go along, it becomes a part of your muscle memory that you'll be able to execute the initial part of it with ease. And all you'll have to worry about is preparing a checklist or a timeline for the other parts of the event. Last, review and revisit. Even though you have gone over 100 things, I'll tell you out of personal experience that there's always at least one error that's bound to happen at events. Events is about people. You always have to remember that. Events is about people. It's not about robots. It's not about the products you keep. It's about the people you bring in. And the people you come to the event, people that come to the event are like the five fingers of a palm. They don't have same expectations. They don't will, although we want to give the best experience, all five will not have the same experience. So there's going to be some shortcoming at some point or another. So it's always important to review and revisit and find out how you can have 99.9% of it as seamless and uniform as possible, so that all attendees will have similar experience and very minimal room for disappointment or dissatisfaction. So that's about the event timeline. You have to always, while you build the timeline, although you'll get an understanding, you always have to take a step back and think about the big picture. If you have to go into the nitty-gritties of what an event is, it's important to also visualize what is or how you vision this entire event to look like. What is the outcome you want out of it? And then again, work backwards. I've put a small note underneath that says, while some degree of micromanagement is warranted, an effective event planner needs to be able to take a step back and think about the big picture of their event. Micromanagement of the event planning, event execution, this is something I will go to in the next slide. But at any point you're stuck while creating the timeline, while preparing the checklist, while reviewing, feel free to take a refresher, take a step back and visualize how you want the event to be and what is it that you think could be missing from what you've put together. It'll then help you out in picturing it, or rather jotting it down to the point where you could make changes or make improvements. Other important aspects of event planning is finding the right team, making contingency plans, and communicating it. Now, when I say finding the right team, some of you may come and say, how am I supposed to select a right team? I just have 5 people that think alike. I have all 5 people who don't have expertise in other areas, such as social media coverage, or doesn't have expertise within making cold calls or calling and having interpersonal skills. How am I supposed to make a team out of it? Is it a challenge? Trust me, it's not. Like I said, event management is about people, but it's also from the people. What you can do is, even though you have 4 team members that do not have an understanding of what event management is, all you'll have to do is assess their strengths and allocate the responsibilities that play well with their strengths. If you have 4 of your friends who need to plan a big party for someone who's given you the contract, one of your friends is good with people. You could probably have them make all the calls, and send invites out, have them meet with the vendors, have them meet with the suppliers. Another friend of yours might be good with money management. Maybe you could have them placed at the ticket station or at the registration space where you have to collect money for entries, or also have them keep track of the money you spend on the event. So what you do is, whatever staff or whatever team members you have to execute an event, you play with the team and make them the right team to make your vision come to life. So it's not a challenge. All you'll have to do is tap into their strengths. Next, making contingency plans. What I do that helps me the best when I plan events is I do something called a quick client journey run through. I try to keep it short or sometimes elaborate. What I do is I look at myself as the attendee of an event, and I try to walk myself through all the stages that are there involved in that event. And while I'm at it, I try to think of the best case scenarios and the worst case scenarios. And I try to think, how can I prepare a backup plan, a contingency plan to ensure that even the worst case scenario doesn't lead to disappointments or dissatisfaction? How do I prepare a contingency plan to support it or ensure that I navigate the attendee through a better experience? So for example, if you have to plan, say, a quick breakfast for your business partners, or you have to plan a networking session for your future organization, what I do is I see myself as one of the attendees. I think of it as me going to the event. Once I'm at the event, the first thing that I'll have to do is register myself. So I let the organization know I have arrived. From there, do I go and have drinks or grab some nibbles, or do I go and interact with the guests? How am I going to be navigated through this? Will I have to approach any volunteer, or will I not? Will the organization provide me with volunteers to support me there? Yes, no. I then make note of saying that, okay, I need to organize volunteers to help the attendees understand what is the way through the event. I then visualize, okay, now that I'm here, I need to understand who is present at the event from what organizations. How will I know? Do I have to reach out to a volunteer again? I have to then make sure that the registration list we have is something that's easily accessible for the attendees as well, so that they can view and reach out to someone who they've had in mind to meet with. So whatever challenges I may face as an attendee, I think and visualize it so that I can then start planning alternatives to support it. Lastly, communicate. In event management, there is no mind reading allowed. In business altogether, that is the rule, but especially when it comes to event management, you cannot visualize something and not communicate it to your team members. They'll not know what your expectations are unless you communicate it, which is why it's one of the biggest steps in the timeline, which is to set internal expectations. Always communicate. And communicate not just within your team members, but also have clear communication sent to your attendees. For example, if your attendees are scheduled to come into your venue in the next 2 days, prepare a note for them that informs them of what time is the event happening, what date, where is the location map, how can they get there? Is it by metro, by car? If they have to take RTA transport, what are the ways? What are the numbers of the bus? Provide them with information so that their journey to the event is as seamless as possible. Prepare a note. If they're accessible on WhatsApp, send a WhatsApp blast. If they're accessible on email, send an email blast. It's important that you try to make the attendees' experience at your event as seamless as possible, even before the event starts. Next, back in work again. What you'll have to do is, if your event is scheduled to happen 2 days later, at the earliest, that is a day before the event, maximum possible, try to have all the team members that will be a part of the event for a quick run through. You need to ensure that each and every individual is aware of what they can expect, what can go wrong, what can go right, who needs to do what in both these scenarios. Walk them through each stages of the event and tell them at stage 1, we require XYZ to focus on XYZ. At stage 2, we need ABC to focus on XYZ. At stage 3, we need 1, 2, 3 to focus on XYZ. Have a run through, give a detailed briefing so that the team is prepared. Let them know who is the right coordinator for what responsibilities. Once you go through the same, you'll notice that the people who are part of the backend event management, who are a part of your team, will start asking questions. Be open to listening to them, because that's when you'll know that you may have missed something that another perspective is able to pick up and advise you on. Once that's all done, event is ongoing. What do? You listen to your participants or the representatives that are present there. And when I say listen, I don't mean eavesdrop. What I mean is, any business, if it has to lead towards success, they need to understand that they need to listen to what their customers are asking that you're not able to provide. The same manner, event management runs well when you're able to listen to the attendees and identify what is it that they're looking for, what is it that they're happy with, what is it that they're not happy with. You feel free to walk up to the attendees and ask, hi, are you doing okay? Is everything fine? Was your journey to the location okay? Is there anything that you need help with? Let them know that you are here to take care of them and give them a good experience. Whatever feedback you may get, take a note of it, because that's a lesson that you can implement in the future. Lastly, follow up with everyone. And when I say everyone, not just the attendees, I mean everyone. Starting with the people who came into the event, the staff or team members that were a part of the event, and to an extent, check with your suppliers or vendors if necessary. It's important that you get an understanding of what went well on the back end. Where is it that you struggled? Where were the challenges that you had in the back end of event management that you could improve for the next time, get even more efficient to execute it the next time? It's also important to understand, despite all the efforts you put in creating a good experience for your attendee, how exactly did it go for them? Did they have a good time? Did they have any difficulty? What difficulty did they have? How can you actually solve it for next time around? Follow up with everyone so that you can prepare better for the next event that you're going to organize for them again. And also to ensure that following up gives a sense of credibility and sense of inclusiveness. And it instantly gives an understanding that this person who organized an event for me is checking about my opinion, and he is asking how can they do better next time. Does that mean they'll involve me? Probably yes. It gives the sense of involvement when you have that kind of a relationship with the attendees by asking them, how did it go for you? How can we improve it for you? Every event is not the same, even though you do it 100 times. What I mean by that is, think of it as a repetitive event where you are asked to organize a gathering for same attendees, or maybe few different attendees, but on a monthly basis or say weekly basis. You know the drill. By the third time you do the event, you know the drill as to what needs to be done, who needs to do what, where can you source what time will the attendee come. Everything will be sorted. You do the same event 100 times that year. But you'll notice that no two of those events are going to be the same. You'll find lessons to learn from each event, because there will be some aspect that you can improve, that you can get efficient with. By the time you've done 3 events, you'll realize that instead of collecting the registrations manually by hand, it would be easier to actually send the link to the attendees with the Google form. By the time you do the fifth event, you'll realize that instead of exporting information manually, I can just have the same Google form connected to Google Sheet and do the registration on spot. By the time you do the seventh event, you'll know that I have already reached out to 4 vendors, but vendor number 3 is giving me better value for better uh, quality products. So with each event, you learn a lesson. With each event, although it's the same layout and format and everything, the experience keeps building. You keep learning lesson out of each of the event that comes out of that you organize. You, without realizing, start looking for ways to make it as efficient as possible so that you don't lose more time in going through an elaborate process, but you find efficient ways to make it quicker and faster and focus and utilize the rest of the time you have at hand to create even a better experience for the attendees that come. So yeah, that's about every event being a new lesson to learn. It's something that I like to look at as at all times, even though I have organized a certain event a few times. I look at it as something that I'm organizing with a new perspective and try and see what is it that I can do differently. I've done it the same way so far. Now is my time to figure out how else can I make it do the turnaround faster. What other added experience can I provide? What other value add can I provide to the attendee? So on and so forth. So with that, I have now reached the conclusion of the session. So if you have any questions, now is the time to ask. So please feel free to use the chat box section and I'd be happy to answer anything that I know.
Wow, Lanita, thank you so much for that. And while we do wait for questions, I just want to say I particularly enjoyed the ums and hums and the way such a simple exercise can actually be applied to unravel some serious complexity when event planning. Quick question for you, actually. We do have a mix of an audience in attendance today, and I do want to circle back to your journey in event planning in the beginning. If you could go back to your younger self, to your first event, I know you've talked through quite a few tips and tricks through this session, but what are 3 things you'd wish that you knew back then?
Firstly, not to panic. I remember the first event that I organized, rather supported with organizing. An hour before the event, I was literally shaking because I was like, okay, the snacks are here, the water's placed, the attendees are here. We have everyone coming in, but what if something goes wrong? What if they're not going to be happy? What, how, where, what? So many thoughts, so many questions that go around the head. Just think of this instance, all right? You are about to leave from your friend's place and you have to get somewhere. You're also in a rush because you have someone waiting at your place and you can't find your car keys. What you do is you put your hand inside the bag and you just fumble through all that's there and you still can't find the keys. But try to stop for a moment, take a deep breath, calm your mind. You just open your bag, go through it calmly. You will find the key much faster than when you're panicked. What I'm trying to say is, back in the day, if I knew that panicking was going to make everything worse and not give clarity, just taking deep breaths would help me. That's one of the first things I would have done before executing the event. Like I said, if every event is about creating an experience for people that attend, and it's important that if we panic, we don't find solutions. It's important to just take a step back, take a deep breath, look at the bigger picture and say, okay, you know what? Even if this goes wrong, let me start thinking about contingency plan. That's the second lesson I wish I knew, that it's okay to make mistakes, but it's important to have contingency plans. If the muffins are going bad, if the fruits are going bad, I need to ensure that the next event, instead of ordering fruits, I order cookies and biscuits so that they don't go bad and have a longer shelf life. Instead of having water bottles being placed at the station, I look at having water jars so that there's no plastic wastage happening. We pay for those water bottles and water. We ensure we don't let it go to waste. So having that kind of a room for error, but also room for improvement kind of a thing. Last but not the least, the biggest lesson I wish I knew was about preparing the checklist. Like I said, the first three events was about a bit of being all over the place. But once I learned to keep a track and keep a checklist, it helped me so much that, like I said, a checklist is now a muscle memory for me. So those are the three things: deep breath, panic, look at big picture, contingency plan, and checklist.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And I love the analogy about the keys in the bag because I can personally relate to that. And in the spirit of disclosure for everyone in the audience, Lanita and I do work together. We run events together. And I think, Lanita, what you've said today really resonates with our team and the number of things that we do. I would say that agility and adaptability really seems to be a common theme here. The bit about panicking, taking a minute to calm down, the fact that things are always so dynamic. You have to be open to change. You have to be able to adapt. You're talking about doing 16 events in a month. That takes some serious energy. You have to really be on your toes all the time. And I'd like to now maybe steer this into a slightly different direction, which is, what do you do in your downtime? How do you maintain a balance between running events and, let's just say, your own mental health and well-being? I think it would be interesting to understand that because, very often, and you're right, events run in every single aspect of our lives, but how do you stop and take a minute? How do you rejuvenate yourself, let's say?
So another thing that I missed on actually mentioning at the beginning of the session was that I'm very passionate about events, so much so that apart from the events that I help with at work, I also host events over the weekends. So whenever I have an opportunity, I look forward to going and hosting events, starting from birthday parties or event galas or company anniversaries to weddings and engagements and so on and so forth. So if you look at it, there are months, peak months, where there are events at work and events over the weekends. But what helps me going, or what keeps me going in spite of all the madness, is the de-stress after everything is done and you hear from your customers or attendees that that was an amazing experience. Thank you for putting that together. My view about event management, or my view about organizing events, is more about creating an experience for those that come to the event. So every time I work towards it and I hear that, okay, the efforts actually paid off and they had a good experience, it kind of motivates me to try and create a better experience for them the next time. So to answer the first question, that's my fuel. I try to think of it as creating an experience. Secondly, what do I do in my downtime to take a break off from the continuous events of life? It's very important that we take a step back and do self-reflection, or we take a step back and find out what is it that I've learned. But on a day where you've already had an exhausted events can be very exhausting because it's not just one thing that you're taking care of, it's multiple things that you have to manage simultaneously. So in a situation like that, you come back home, you don't really have the energy to reflect back or do the things that can actually help you grow on that level. So what I do is I just kick back, and it somehow again goes back to me creating events, but sometimes it's hard to just switch off the head. But I just kick back and I just think about, I took so much effort to do this one task. How can I actually make it more efficient the next time around? And I just try to then ponder over it, keep pondering over it, until I fall asleep. So you can just say that my head is kind of like glued into the whole event ecosystem. But apart from that, what I do enjoy the most is making sure that I disconnect from work and spend time with my family, so that it's a change of space and change of pace, and just kind of helps me reconnect, rejuvenate, and get ready for the next phase.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. So I am smiling, my video's off, but I'm sure we're all familiar with Friends and Monica from Friends. I'm getting some serious Monica vibes right now.
Yeah, you could say I'm a combination of Monica and Phoebe.
That's awesome. That's great. I love the spirit. Lanita, one last question that we've received, which is, do you have any advice for our young audience in the room? So let's say, the grade 9s to 12s, if they want to explore event planning, where does one start? How should one start? Any advice would be appreciated.
Sorry, your line disconnected after you said grade 9.
Sorry, so just any advice for students in the room from grades 9 to 12? Let's say, event planning is a pretty niche area if you get into it, but at the same time, it's so generalistic in that it applies to every industry. Do you have any advice for the young audience, where to start, how to start, what to look at when starting?
Yes. So one of the first things I would advise is, before you look at event management as a profession or start doing it professionally, if it's something that identify if it's something that you thoroughly enjoy or something that you see yourself, putting your strengths in. What you can do is reach out to your counselors, reach out to your teachers, and identify if there are events coming up. And if you can volunteer there and see which area of event management do you actually see yourself adding value. So your high school duration is actually the time for you to explore your strengths and key areas where you can eventually see yourself excelling in. So utilize the time, utilize the events that are coming in within your schools, and volunteer yourself to find out which areas you can actually put your skills to test. Apart from that, if you would like to take event management as a profession, I would suggest you do have a lot of successful agencies and organizations in the UAE that run full-time events. However, you have to also consider that there are peak event seasons and then off-peak event seasons. During off-peak event seasons, because it's such a volatile industry, you have organizations taking you up on a contract basis just for the peak period, and then you may have to look for an alternative opportunity. So to be on the safer side, my recommendation would be to reach out to organizations that has a strong marketing team that runs a lot of events. So that way, not only do you learn about events, but you also learn about marketing, digital marketing, partnership building. So this will ultimately aid in you having a better preparation for a long-term career than just one segmented side of event management. Also remember that if you get good at event management, you automatically get good at partnership building. And the reason why I say it is because if you want to have a successful event within budgeting, you invariably learn to negotiate, you learn to find more contacts and networks, and you work towards building a relationship with them that will allow you to have mutual benefits and then take it forward. So that again, the quality of partnership building will aid well with you as a marketer. So if you see yourself as an event management personnel, but you also have great interpersonal skills, I would strongly suggest looking for internship opportunities or job opportunities within marketing, but be sure to do your research and find the organizations that does a lot of events as well. So you can plug yourself into that area, provide support there, and slowly grow from there. That's my advice based on my personal experience. So I
Thank you
hope that
for that.
helps.
Yes, it does. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Lanita. Thank you once again for taking time out. I know you've done a couple of sessions with us in the community today, so thank you for taking time out of your schedule for that. We do appreciate it, and I don't see any more questions. If we do have some come through, we'll definitely be channeling them to you post-event.
Absolutely. I look forward to that.
Great. And to our lovely audience, thank you so much for attending. We will now be taking a quick 15-minute break. Grab a snack, grab a cup of coffee. We'll see you back at 2 o'clock for the next session. Thank you.
Thank you for hosting me, Shweta, and a big thanks to UAE Careers community as well. I must applaud all the efforts and time you are investing in providing a great platform for students to grow. So thank you once again, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.